What's going on, everybody? This video is going to be a little bit different than my normal NBA uploads where I'm going through my top player prop picks for a day. This video is going to be about strategy and how I use Outlier.Bet to find profitable sports betting picks on their website. Outlier really is the number one research tool out there. If you watch all of my videos, it's the only thing that I'm showing all the time. I'm being completely upfront with you. Like, Outlier is the only tool that I use to find all of my sports betting picks for NBA, WNBA, college football, NFL to an extent. About 95% of it is Outlier. I use another website for 5% just for something that Outlier can't do yet. Hopefully one day they can do it for us. But Outlier is an amazing website. If you want to sign up for a 7-day free trial for Outlier, you can use the link in my video description below. And I'll put it in the pinned comment below too, so you can get that 7-day free trial. All new accounts get a 7-day free trial for Outlier too. And honestly, you'll make enough in a day where it pays for your entire subscription for a year. So I'm going to show you guys how I use Outlier in this video. I'm just actually going to show you my entire research process. If you don't want to use Outlier and you just want to tail my picks, I'm going to put a QR code up in the corner here. You can use that QR code or the link in my video description below for my VIP bets, where I post all of my bets and my articles every day. Basically, I do all the research and I just tell you what the output of the research is as those bets for VIP. So if that was something that interested in you, instead of signing up for Outlier, you can use that link in the QR code or in the description below. But this video is mainly focusing on strategy using Outlier. So this is a Sunday slate. Basically, the slate that I'm looking at here, it's an 8-game NBA slate. Really haven't looked at it too much, so this is really the start of my process. Super late on a Saturday night right now when I'm recording this, so a lot of the lines are not going to be out. A lot of the injury news isn't going to be out yet. But it's a good starting point, and hopefully you can get some pointers from this to add to your process. I do things very different than a lot of people. I ignore matchup completely, so I completely ignore the opponent ranks and the defensive ranks and Outlier. I'm very different when it comes to that. I'd say the majority of people don't do that. My edge and what I focus on is finding out the opportunity, the minutes, and the usage of a player. And I'm trying to game script inside Outlier to try to match previous games so I can fully understand what this game is going to look like tonight. So I'll use a couple examples here as I go through. Just going to show you my entire process, start to finish, all the tools that I use. Mostly Outlier, but there's a couple other websites and stuff just because it displays things a little bit differently. But anyways, so let's start with my filters on Outlier for NBA. So I'm in Florida. I only use Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, and Hard Rock. I mean, I could use like Kalshi and Fliff and some of these others, but I just personally don't. My odds, I do minus 130 to minus 110. Reason for this, Prize Picks and Underdogs. So Prize Picks is minus 119. Underdog is minus 120 under normal lines. And then I add a little 10-cent buffer so I get these extra lines from Sleeper and from Hard Rock too, just so I get, if a line is minus 119 on Prize Picks, but it's like minus 110 on Hard Rock, I want to see it on Hard Rock. So, or if it's not on Prize Picks, but it's on Hard Rock and it's minus 110, I want to see it. So that's the reason why I do that. The props that I filter for, I mainly focus on the main ones. So I ignore like some of these obscure ones like first basket, made field goals, most assists, most 3-pointers. I ignore, a lot of the like turnovers is one that I ignore for the most part, but I have it on there. Like I mainly focus on the PRAs, the points, the rebounds, and the assists. Field goal attempts is a good one this year, and a lot of the first half and first quarter props too. So for the most part, like I said, I include steals and blocks and steals, turnovers, 3-pointers, but I very rarely bet those markets, and I mainly focus on the main ones. But that's my filters on Outlier. I sort generally starting point by last 10 win rate. I'll talk a little bit about that later on how that could be deceiving in a bit. Alternate lines turned off, and this checkbox turned off unless I'm looking for like a parlay filler or something. But I'm going to focus on the straight bets for this video and how I find them for you guys. So I'll show you another tool that I use in tandem with Outlier. It's called #basketball. It's the website #basketball.com. And then I use their schedule grid. So what this does, it just kind of shows all the games in a day. Outlier does it too, to an extent, but I just find this easier for me to look at a top level of everything. Because the first place that I start all my research is actually on this hashtag basketball. So the Sunday slate here, we have 8 games on a Sunday. These are all the teams that are playing in those 8 games. This also shows you the whole week too. So like if there's a team who's had like 5 games this week, they're a bit tired, or like 3 and 4 days, it will show you that here too. Another website I use here is rotowire.com. This data is also on Outlier. It actually exports into Outlier inside of the specific player cards. But I like to look at top level for all the teams just because it's easier visually for me to see everything before I go into the player cards, just as a starting point. So rotowire.com is a good place to see all the potential starting lineups and the injury news. But like I said, it's all in Outlier already. So you don't have to go to Rotowire to see it. I just prefer to see it in this way. And then one follow on X that you should definitely follow is this Underdog NBA account. Main reason for this is because they post injury news and starting lineup updates all throughout the day. So you're constantly seeing like lineup alerts, questionable tags, players getting ruled probable, players getting ruled out. So if you want like up to the minute information, this Underdog NBA Twitter account is a really good follow, and it's honestly super useful if you're looking for updates throughout the day for like a player who's questionable, or if someone's going to be out. Like you want to know that stuff pretty quickly so you can go do your research in Outlier and then adjust to whatever injuries there are. So all right, let's go back to the hashtag basketball to show where I start my process. So I start with back to back. So what I mean by back to backs is game teams that are playing 2 days in a row, but I only care if they're on the second leg of a back to back. This will become important too, because when I go over to Outlier, I'll show you how I look at this information. So we see on this Sunday slate, the Heat played last night and the Timberwolves played last night. So we'll go back to Outlier and we'll focus on these two teams just as a starting point, because you want to narrow it down as quickly as possible and as easy as you possibly can. So we'll start with the Heat, and I'll focus on like the PRAs generally. So I'll sort it by here by line just so I can see the PRAs, or you can obviously change the filter, the prop filter to PRA. But I'll go player by player. So like Norman Powell, I want to see how you're playing on back to backs this year. All right, you're 0-4. That's promising. Last 2 seasons. Okay, well you've gone under in 13 out of 14 games. Granted, last season you were with the Clippers. So you probably have to throw away these 10 games last year because completely different situation. You only got to focus on these 4 games this year, but very promising sign for him to go under every time these back to backs. Considering he's probably a guy where he's getting around the same minutes for the most part. The usage is fairly similar to just because he's that kind of player, but this could be a profitable prop, but I don't really know if I want to go with it. I just focus on the ones this year. You'd also could focus on the games like without Tyler Hero, because Hero is going to be out. It doesn't change anything in the sample size, but just something to note of, as you're going through the research process. But something like this, I would mark down as a potential spot that I would want to hit. 93% in the same situation, but like I said, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt because these 10 games were with the Clippers last year, so different situation. We'll head over to Bam Adebayo here. Next player, back to backs, last 20. Okay. He's gone under in 67% of the game. Second leg as a home, 5 out of 8. It's an okay spot. Without Hero, only 3 games, so not enough of a sample for me here. What I try to do when I'm finding profitable props is I look for the best of the best. So, you could sit here and you could look through thousands of player cards throughout a day. You could look through every single player for every single prop of every game, and you'll probably find like 150 props that look pretty good to you that are like 65% or higher, right? I'm looking for the best of the best. And so when I find like 3 to 5 or so that I think are just really, really good, I stop. I don't want to spend my entire day trying to find more and more and more bets, because quite honestly, the more bets you place in a day, unless you're doing positive EV, it's likely just not going to work out for you. You're going to big yourself out. You're going to variance yourself out. Um, at the end of the day, the players still have to play. They still have to make their shots. They still have to do everything. What you're just trying to do is you're trying to predict situations when the sports book has a line either too low or too high for the situation tonight that you're trying to portray in your game script. So that's why I start with the back to backs. I kind of go player by player. I'll just do Jacques just here because I'm here. Back to backs, last 20. Okay, well, 4 to 16 games. But looking at this here in his minutes, you see 26 minutes in basically all these games this year or more. So you probably have to throw out most of these games here because it was a different role. Let's move his minutes to like 25 plus. Then it goes to 4 to 9. Not that great. So you kind of get what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of going through, looking at the charts, trying to find out why things happened. Filtering for back to backs. Another situation here is the injury situation. So we'll use the Pistons as an example because I was looking over there. I saw that they have a couple guys out. So we'll go to Cade and we'll go games without player. No Levert, no Duren, no Harris. So Levert's been out, 8 games here. Harris has missed 8 games, and Duren's only missed 1 game. So we basically only have a 1 game sample size this year without Duren. Doesn't really show me much. He was with the team last year, but he did only miss 4 games when Cade played. So like this really doesn't show me much in this situation. And if you filter for all 3, it's really not going to show you anything either. So we'll head over to like Isaiah Stewart, because he's the center. And what I would do for a guy like Isaiah Stewart is I'll look for guys that match. So like Duren, he's a center. Harris, he's kind of like a small forward, power forward. But for this instance, I'll simply go with Duren because he is like the direct backup to Jalen Duren. And you see only 2 games this year, going back to last year too. There's only 4 games last year. Like the sample size isn't great. And the only instance where I would consider taking this prop if it was like 6 out of 6, and he was averaging like 24 to this 21, and all these were over like 24. But that's just going to be hard to find. But yeah, that's kind of how I do things. I just go through the player cards. I filter for back to backs to start. I filter for injury situations. I'm trying to find the absolute best props out there. Some main numbers that you could probably focus on. There really is no set in stone thing that works. You're going to lose bets. I mean, that's 100% going to happen. You're never going to win every single bet you place. But you want to put yourself in a position where you can make a lot of money just over the long term, over the course of a season, really. But I focus on like maybe like 75 or 80% on a hit rate, at least a 10-game sample size or so on a player. So, for example, like, I really probably won't be able to find it here, but like, say Reeves is out, and say Luca had 10 games here without Reeves, but with LeBron, because you want to filter, you want to paint a picture of what tonight is going to look like. And if Luca had like 10 games in the sample size, I would be tempted to take this if he was like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 going under. But yeah, that's just kind of how you have to do things. You really have to filter for, players being out, very similar players too. But like an example, this is actually a really good example for this. So for the Lakers, you have 3-star guys essentially. You have Luca, you have LeBron, and you have Reeves. These are the 3 main guys who get most of the, the usage for the Lakers, right? So anytime you're filtering one of these 3 players, you got to include the others. The Sixers are a really good one too. So like if you're looking at Maxey, you have to look at the games where Embiid and George play, because you want to include the guys with the usage with them. So like I'll never look at a Luka prop without including games with LeBron in, and without Reeves, because obviously Reeves is out right now. Like I'll never look at a prop like this. And if you look at last year too, there were 8 games, great. I wish it was a couple more, but it is a potential under spot for Luka here. At 75% hit rate, not 10 games, but it is potential. Some days you're not going to find things that are perfect. That's okay. Don't force things. Just be disciplined. But yeah, that's kind of a full overview on how I use Outlier to find my plays. Like I said, start to finish. I'm not finding plays in this video. I'm not trying to find plays, just kind of showing you my thought process for everything. Filtering for injuries, filtering for back-to-backs, adjusting the minutes. Those are the most important things. You're just trying to paint a picture of how the game is tonight. So if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me with any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them in there. If you're not in the Outlier Discord server, you can post them in my Discord. My Discord's free to join. The link is located in the video description below. But if you want to join the Outlier Discord server, you have to sign up through their website. So sign up for your 7-day free trial for Outlier, and it will pop right up to join their Discord server. But hopefully this gives you, a little bit of a better idea on how to find profitable NBA props using Outlier. This is exactly how I do it. I'm gonna try to do more videos like this in the future, but it just kind of depends on my schedule and stuff like that. But like I said, reach out if you have any questions, and best of luck on finding profitable props, guys. Thanks for watching.